All right, what a wonderful time we had doing the documentary you're about to observe, to, I hope, enjoy. As we continue traveling this hemisphere, and especially here in the States, we find so many signs. As the old cliche, the rocks speak, you bet they do. Here we have documentation, I feel, at least to my satisfaction, that a Hellenist or an Hellenist was in Clay County, Kentucky, long before it was called Clay County or even Kentucky. A Hellenist, well, let's define first what a Hellenist is. Hellenist usually was one of the 12 tribes that actually spoke Greek or lived in a Greek community and was accustomed to using Greek as their alphabet rather than the Hebrew alphabet. And usually, well, let's take one of the most, probably the most famous Hellenist would be Paul. Though Paul spoke Greek, kind of a colloquial Greek, we might say, for whichever area he was in, and it would seem that's why some of the scholars have difficulty in identifying the authorship, under God's direction, of course, of certain letters to the churches by Paul. Paul spoke colloquial Greek. He was actually trained in the Hebrew language and was certainly used to using that Hebrew alphabet because he studied under the great Gamaliel, as it is written in the New Testament. But it was a person that was accustomed primarily to using Greek as the base language, however, usually educated, that is to say familiar with, Hebrew. And the reason we base and say an Hellenist was in Clay County, Kentucky is quite simply that on two different occasions, say give or take 8 or 10 miles apart, we have a sign left from long ago using both the Greek and the Hebrew. The Greek is so perfect, and the writer, as you're going to find in one of the places, had a perfect, well, I won't say perfect, I'll say a precious hand in bringing forth the Greek. And the message that was left was fantastic. And we've only started here, I'm sure, because we're going to have Dr. Pyle come down from West Virginia and do a dig, if possible, at the location where one of the Greek portions will be exhibited for you here in a moment. I'll point it to you if I remember it at the time as to where the dig will take place, because it's very important that this was most likely a place of worship to this individual or individuals, and there was an abundance, I might say, of water, and here a large stream, and certainly large streams were the freeways of that day. But it was situated in a place where a person could live very comfortably and travel very comfortably, and that is to say, as far as comfort goes in that particular period. But this no doubt was a religious place for them, and in doing an excavation, we hope that we can find artifacts or things without leading or making claims, but to actually find documented proof further that Hellenists were in this area. As always, we find signs that many people travel through an area, and unfortunately, oftentimes recent visitors that must leave what we call graffiti. Please, when you're traveling and you see ancient writings, there are many ancient writings that are not even documented yet. Don't deface them. That's important. It's part of our heritage. And those signs, those ancient writings, they were placed there to leave a message. It could be from the American Indian, it could be from a Hellenist, as you're going to, I think, have documented beyond any shadow of a doubt in this particular documentary, or of any of the many other peoples that traveled the Americas. So what a heritage we have in this, and how exciting it is. So Back to the subject, Hellenist. Hellenist, one that would have traveled from the old country through one method or the other, one course, one route or the other. And how exciting it's going to be as we continue with our dig in this particular area. And I must say, if you're ever through Clay County, Kentucky, what a friendly group of people, what friendly residents there are in this area, and what a beautiful county. My ancestors lived in and traveled through Clay County, so this particular county had a great interest to me in more ways than one. And you're going to find that it is a most beautiful place. But here in Clay County, Kentucky, we find these beautiful writings. And meaningful? Yes. It's obvious that they were Christian because of the message that is left, which you will be able to see here in a moment. How perfect our Father's plan in His Word, but also how rewarding it is when our Father said, I shall scatter the children even to the isles, which means to the other coast. Then we find His children were scattered. And it is our desire, with our Father's guidance, to lead you to these numerous places that sign was left by those children as they scattered. Some of you might say, well, why do we do these documentaries? It's to help prove that our Father's Word is true. Beloved, you'd be surprised how many people have been drawn to the Word of God saying, I can see it now, it's real. We see it on the stone. We see the travels, the migrations of numerous people. And of course, many people have been brought to a better understanding of our Father's Word to say, yes, it is true. That has happened many times in the audiences of SCN in these documentaries. And I like to take an opportunity like this to thank everyone that has ever participated in or sent information that leads us to these various places in this hemisphere as well as others, to bring the truth and set it forward. We do not attempt to put on some big production, but simply to take you there without any of the trimmings so that you can see these beautiful things as they are, we could say, in the rough. In our one line, you're there. We want to take you there so that you can enjoy. So, I hope that you enjoy this documentary taken in Clay County, Kentucky. All right, let's go to the field and see what we can find. All right, say, ladies and gentlemen, here we're very fortunate to be in Clay County, Kentucky. I want to tell you something. The people are so friendly here and so very helpful, and we certainly owe the whole county a great vote of gratitude for being so friendly and so helpful here in this great Clay County. As I've always told you, the rocks speak. You've got to get out there and hunt the truth, and you got to listen real close to hear what they say, reading signs of the past. It gives me great pleasure to present to you at this time Jimmy Burchell. He's our host here, and I tell you what, we're going to learn a great deal from him of his findings and helping locate these ancient writings here in Clay County, Kentucky. Jimmy, thank you for having us here, and it's a real pleasure to have you on SCN.
Dr. Murray, it's our pleasure to have you here.
Well,
and we want to welcome you here to the mountains of eastern Kentucky, and especially to Clay County, and to the people who are here, your staff that's working with you. You are opening a great door to the past, to the distant past. And we always thought this was closed forever, that it would have been impossible to know what happened in that far back time. But thanks to you and the people who are working with you, we are able to look into the centuries gone by and know who traveled here and who lived here and what they were doing and even what they were thinking. And we're perhaps on the verge of solving some mysteries. And one of them might be the great mystery of the Fountain of Youth.
Well, that's fascinating.
I think that the reputation of the salt and mineral spring on Big Goose Creek, with its renowned health-giving properties, is what made a picture of the Fountain of Youth rise in the imagination of the Spanish.
Interesting.
So we're going to visit 5 petroglyph locations. All 5 sites are in sandstone. 2 of them are in sandstone cliffs, this being one of them, the Redbird Cliff. 1 is in a cave, and 2 are outcroppings on top of very high mountains.
Well, that sounds very interesting. We're certainly looking forward to it. Always remember this, my friends. Our history is his story. And if we don't bring forth the history that the young people in this nation can take pride in it, then there is, along with that, no future. Or at least it would seem by certain people, they like to kind of downgrade the hopes of the future. And frankly, I think this great nation is in better shape right now than it has been in the last 75 years, that we don't have threats of wars. So the young people that would gang in gangs, no, there is a future and this nation is present. Let's get into the history. Therefore, you take pride in it, and people that are proud of their country take care of it. Jimmy, thank you. God bless you. It's good to be with you.
Glad to have you here. Okay, we believe this is a Greek acrostic. This here is the key, and this over here is the pie. And this part down here is a form of upsilon. And this part of the acrostic looks like a latter Hebrew X. And we're not positive what the translation is right now, but it does look like it has the first letters of the word Christ and Son and Father. And there's also another letter down here which could be a iota. We're not certain. We've not really given it to the experts. But if you'll notice, this acrostic is detached from the rest of this writing here. It's up higher and over to the side. And look how beautifully it's framed, and how that it stands out with this background. And right over here is, we thought was the word John. We'd been seeing this for many, many years, but we think this is a Omicron, iota, a capital Eta, a nu, and down under it looks like over here is an Omicron pointed a different way. This is going to be exciting to see how this is translated. But I don't think this is, I'm sure this is not English. A very unique thing about this writing here is this pentagram, the 5-pointed star. And this was found on the bricks in Camacalco. And it's interesting that the Camacalco is due south of the mouth of the Mississippi River. So people at the mouth of the Mississippi River only had to go due south and they were there. It's not all that far. And people from here, it was downstream all the way. And there's a good reason for us to think that this is Ogham. And perhaps this is Ogham also. And we feel that this is corner Ogham here.
All right, we're going to go now to what is known in Clay County as Redbird Cliff. There is a writing here that is in number 7, Aesop number 7, in Dr. Barry Feld's work. The major translating or translation has not been done, for it's a little difficult, and we feel that perhaps what we're about to share with you in Jim Burchell's work on this particular spot, that it's going to be a key, now that we have other writings in this same area, that will unlock some of the understanding or the message that was thought to be conveyed here. Okay, with that said, let's go to the translation, if we may. Okay, here we have a Hellenist writing, and the translation worked out by Burchell. Here we have Christ in the Greek, the Son in the Greek. We have a pi in the Greek, pata, which is to say Father, Christ the Father, the Son. And if we were to take the vowel point, then under the Z in Hebrew, and this being a Hebrew letter, thus we call it Hellenist, the translation would be Christ the Son of the Father is Zebdel, which is to say the gift of God. Christ the Son of the Father is the gift of God. What a perfect message left. There, in translating, there is room for error. Well, not in this case. The Hebrew letter, the vowel point is rather interesting, and that it would be used at this time, and it will cause some consternation among some people, but that's okay. I think Jim has done a very good work here, and we could see the key. Many of the local people have been told down through the years that Chief Redbird accomplished the writings on this bluff, and I wonder what Greek school, and I'm not taking away from Chief Redbird, he was a very wise man and controlled and or owned quite an area through this particular county, and therefore called Redbird Cliff from this Indian chief, a very noble man. But naturally we know that he did not, nor did he need the Greek alphabet, that this was done long before Chief Redbird. I would say that Chief Redbird was very honorable in as much as he did not touch, at least to what it is very obvious, he did not touch this cliff with these ancient writings on it. They were respected by the American Indian. And I must say that throughout the nation, the Native Americans were here long before your present-day Americans, long before Columbus. This is why it's really a joke when people say that Columbus discovered America, and here you have a big celebration coming up about that discovery. Well, it just falls a little flat when you realize that the history books eventually are going to be changed. Columbus, it's an insult to the American Indian, the Native American, to say that Columbus discovered America when they were present. They discovered it long before he did. And then I feel there were people that probably discovered it before they did. So let's at least be wise and just a little bit intelligent. And the American children have been misled on this concept for many years. That is another one of the points in which we like to do these documentaries. When we are able to carbon date, such as burial spools with Hebrew writings in the Back Creek stone, that back to the anywhere from 3500 BC to 135 AD, in that area, very intelligent men that were even familiar with the manuscripts, because they quoted from the manuscripts on the Back Creek stone, saying, "The Lion of the tribe of Judah, let the voice of God be the poker that draws these firebrands back to God," in pure Hebrew, pure ancient Hebrew, that is. And someone wants to say Columbus discovered America when that happened in Tennessee, Loudoun County, Tennessee, no later than 150 AD. So it's time that people gave more respect to the natives of the Americas before Columbus got here. It was a well-established area, nations, peoples, and there had been many travelers and down through the years. We could go on and on. The Newark Holy Stones, with using the zati, which documents certainly that the zati, even though it was used incorrectly to a point, in those days you didn't carry an alphabet along with you in stone. The burden would be a little heavy, and man's mind does make. There's nobody perfect. But sometimes a small imperfection, when it is repeated in the same letter, such as zati 5 times in that particular stone, it rather than disproves, locks in the fact that a copyist didn't do it, that there were priests of the 12 tribes in this nation. And never think for a moment that I would be guilty of reading any of the 12 tribes into writings in this nation. If it is documented and is there, if it's Baal writing, I'm not going to try to connect Christianity with Baal writings. It would seem that some Christians must turn everything to Christianity, and they lose their credibility in the science community in doing that. We're after facts. And when we see in Clay County, Kentucky, this beautiful inscription, and then with a lengthy message, which Jim's going to be and has said a few words about. There's one place there whereby this kind of a magic sign, I'm going to say the star, that we found in Calmacaco. It was there, or something very similar. So, as people traveled, I feel that because of the river connection, that Yucatan was just a stone's throw from many of the openings and rivers and inlets of the people that traveled here. So I have no problem with the fact that we do see connections occasionally. So, there you have it, an Hellenist in the Americas long, long ago. He that would use Greek as well as the Hebrew alphabet to convey the message, naturally, our Father and the Son, with the Son being the gift of God. For truly He was a gift to all mankind everywhere.
We want to introduce to you Sheriff Ed Jordan, Clay County Sheriff, and his deputy, W.O. Wagers.
Yes.
We appreciate y'all coming very much to help us down here, direct traffic, and give us a feeling of security. We feel awful safe with y'all down here with us.
It's our pleasure to assist y'all.
And also on behalf of SCN, we want to thank you too, gentlemen, and we appreciate your help, and you've certainly added to our safety here on this location.
Appreciate you all coming out and checking this out.
Great. Thank you very much, W.O.
We want to thank James Ed Garrison for coming and putting us up to the cliff, and for getting in there with me and guiding me up there. If it'd been left up to me, I'd have probably been over in the river right now. And we want to thank Kelly for coming and helping us out too. She's been a big help. About 20 years ago, I was hunting for artifacts around this place here, and I saw a few turkey tracks and markings, and because I was interested in Indian artifacts, I looked at it and went on. And when I started seeing Dr. Murray's documentaries and hearing about the work of Barry Fail and Dr. Powell, I thought I'd come back here and take another look. So on the Sunday afternoon of June the 21st, 1992, one summer afternoon, I came in here the hard way. I'd forgotten how to get in here. So I struggled around this mule's face around here, and I was lucky to find it, but this had a lot of green moss growing on it. But through a thin veil of green moss, I thought I saw a sigma. I mean, I thought I saw it. I didn't think it possible for it to be one. And then when I brushed the moss aside, I saw the upsilon. And then when I saw the theta, then I knew I'd found the Greek acrostic. And so after I got home, I got to looking through certain books, and I realized what this was. This is a sigma, a iota, a upsilon, a theta, and a pi. And this had me puzzled here because it didn't look Greek. And what we found out, this was a Hebrew letter, Hey. And so this translated means the Savior, Jesus, is the Son of God the Father. And this means lo or behold. And I was very thrilled to find this. And this letter here, the capital Eta, we found it on 2 or 3 other places. And the upsilon. And it seems that when you look in your Strong's Concordance, there's not a whole lot of letters that begin with the Eta. So it wasn't really hard to find out what this means. And this, I'm sure, refers to Matthew 2:6, where it says, out of these shall come forth a governor, which shall rule my people Israel. And it speaks of Judah as not being one of the least of the princes, or Bethlehem not being one of the least of the princes of Judah. So this means hegemon, governor. And this, I think, is what Paul uses in Ephesians 1:21 when he refers to Christ as being far above all principality and power, might and dominion. So this means the governor which is above all. Whether or not it was the same individual who carved this, we don't know, but we know it's in close proximity to this. This acrostic is the key that opened up this whole field here for us. Because when we saw this, we realized this was very old. We realized that here was a person who was a Hebrew scholar as well as Greek, and who was acquainted with the Hebrew and the Greek, both languages in which the Bible was written. And from that, then, we began to find other languages. So I'm full of curiosity to find out what all these other inscriptions mean. And I'm sure that they are very, very ancient. As you can see, this has been highlighted to make it more visible to you. And it's been done with an ingredient that will not destroy the acid balance of the rock or hurt it in any way. It'll wash off. And right here could be a line of demarcation that we did not highlight, because this Greek could have been written by a different person. It may not have, but at least it'll give you a better idea of what it looks like. Now this carving here, the thing that strikes you is the square beard. And of course we know that the Indians didn't have too much facial hair, and what they did, they kept it plucked off. Another thing that strikes me are the eyes. In some of the early Greek Etruscan alphabets, the theta is perfectly round with a dot in the middle of it. And I'm wondering if these two eyes are not thetas, which represent the eyes of the Lord, which run to and fro throughout the whole earth. And if that be so, it would be blasphemous to put these eyes on anybody except a representation of Christ. And we do know that there is in this cave people who knew Christ and who knew that he was the manifestation of God in the flesh.
Beautiful, very good. Explain to us, if you would, just in case the camera doesn't pick it up, what is odd about those eyes as to how they stand, the depth. What would you say that was, 1/4 of an inch? Or
I would say it would be 1/4 of an inch. And on camera, you can see things, really, I don't know why it is, you can see things that you can't see just sitting here looking at it, but it seems to have depth and personality. When you first look at it, you know, it might not be so striking, but the more you see it, this face is looking this way. Right here you can see the hair and the beard, and it's got a dimension that I can hardly define. Now, another striking thing is the nose has been cut off. You have 3 strokes here with some kind of an instrument, and you do have lichen growing on these. So I first thought maybe some of the early white settlers had cut that off, but it looks very, very ancient to me.
And here we do have a new find. That's what's very important. And it's by the efforts of you that live in these specific areas, that have grown up in these specific areas, such as Jim. This is a new discovery, and I have no doubt that you will have a paper written on this by Mr. Bichel in the next Aesop magazine, for it is an important find. That translation, how precious it is. Now, I want to say just one word real quickly about the face that you observed there. I want to say one thing. Remember the square beard, which was foreign to the natives here. The Native Americans usually do not have beards, number one. But the fact that also the indentation, the surface on which this was chiseled and formed into this stone was 8 inches, I mean, at the top of the face. And I feel that this in itself might have been shadowed with the shadow down to the eye, which I think delivers a message. And I'll show you a clip, if I may, of how this happens, maybe giving the time of worship through that day. But how exciting, and that's one reason we're going to continue to research this particular area and do a small excavation to find out if there are artifacts found here with other signs left as to exactly who was here. Can we identify them? Well, it's worth a try, and we're certainly going to go for it, and that will be done by Robert Pyle, the archaeologist, he's so good, so very good, and we'll be giving a further report on that after the dig is over. But here we have this face with the indentation chiseled back to the depth that it is. I want you to see this shadow as it comes down, as you're being shown. This particular photograph taken on site while we were there. And you kind of have to use your own imagination. But did this mean this was the time of day that prayer went forth, or one of the prayer times, and so on and so forth? Well, those things are exciting to wonder about. Now, the major find, let's go back to it. The major find is the Hellenist writing here. And there can be no doubt about the translation on the first wording, which I'm going to deal with. The highest is always that refers to our Father. So we have the He, the Hebrew letter He, and behold, or lo. And then we go to the first Greek letter, Sota, and with sigma, which is Savior. Iota being the second letter. Iota being Jesus, Uplosan, which is to say the Son. Theta, which is to say the Father. And of course, pi being pata, rather. So, what do we have? Behold, written in bold Hebrew, behold, the Savior, Jesus, is the Son of God the Father. How precious. Written, and I want you to observe the hand that wrote this, if you would. It's not just scratches on a stone. I want to go back to it just a moment, if it's at all possible. I want you to note the exactness of the forming of the sigma iota, the Greek, Notice the perfection, and even as far as that's concerned, the Hebrew letter. The first time, yes, a new find. A new find and something new? No, something that's been here a long, long time. And I thank Jim for having remembered back into the past that he had observed this, and then in later years calling it to our attention and sharing his work upon this stone and this sign. How important, how absolutely necessary when we see such perfection. Now, needless to say, we have highlighted this whereby it shows better for you with a harmless mixture which before we would leave the site would be totally washed away, done away with. But I'm telling you, and I cannot stress or emphasize enough, the importance of this find, that certainly it is another master key and link that Columbus did not discover America. Not even, he wasn't the first person from Europe here. He wasn't the first person from the Middle East area here. He may have been the first Spaniard here, who knows, I doubt it. But Columbus had very little to do with the, well, I don't want to say he had very little to do with the history. He brought colonies in and so forth, but I'm saying as far as having discovered it, forget it. It's not possible. And this is one of those beautiful, I'm going to call a landmark discovery of a Hellenist. And not only this one that is so perfect, but within, I'm going to, and this is a guess, I'm going to say less than 10 miles to cover myself. Less than 10 miles from the Redbird Cliff, where we have the writings of another Hellenist. That's kind of a double witness. And when you're documenting something, that's very necessary. And hey, we've only begun. Wait until the dig is finished. Pray about it. Let's hope that someone accidentally dropped something, a signet or something, or left a sign. People always do. That in the dig and in the screenings, that we'll be able to find more information, because I cannot thank Jim and the people, the landowners and the people that make this possible enough to share this, for having shared this beautiful truth with our network and with the people of the world. History is his story, and it's something that should be shared. And we want to go, what can I say, our deepest regards and thanks to the property owner and to Jim for having brought this forth. And certainly, as you probably noted in the beginning, the sheriff's departments and the equipment that was furnished, and you know, it's strange. I asked the truck owner, you know, with the big bucket that lifted us up, and some might say this is digression, be that as it may, but I said, we'd like to, you know, pay your hourly rate or whatever, and no, he was insulted, really. He was doing God's work, a discovery. It was important to him. And his little daughter, that was, after they were up in the bucket, she's the one that had to restart the mechanism to get them back down, bless her heart. So, what an effort when all pull together. And I know that some of you've gone across the back 40 and noticed strange things, or you've been out in the desert. Sometimes those things are very important, such as this particular find. This is so very important that it actually changes his story, which is to say what? It changes history. It is genuine. It's not a fraud. And we will further document that as we continue our studies. No, we haven't made our last trip to Clay County, Kentucky. And how exciting it was, these many, many locations there, in reading those signs, those things from the past. Oh, and the messages. Behold, the Savior, Jesus, Yeshua, we could even say, now let's stick to the Greek, is the Son of God the Father. Not the Son of someone else, but the Son of God, Yahweh the Father. How precious that our Father's Word is, but how precious also His children that traveled. And this was, we might call it today a church. This was a place of worship. I have no doubt that the face carved thereupon, not an image to worship, but symbolizing that great gift to man. For I would imagine that when one traveled a very dangerous trail, such as it would have been at the time of this particular writing, I'm not going to mention a date because we're still hoping we have certain material we're going to carbon date, but we're hoping to find other material that we can even carbon date better. But how important it was to keep that close contact with our Father in those dangerous travels at that time. I hope that when we go on these locations, that you also can see that stream, which was the highway, and that you can visualize a Hellenist coming down that stream and climbing this ledge in this beautiful area, knowing that there was enough game and good fertile soil to support life here. And then on choosing to be a resident of this area for a while, would go to the trouble to build his church, his place of worship, and would honor our Father and His Son, and would humbly appreciate the gift that was from our Father, His Savior. I hope you've all enjoyed this documentary. It was a pleasure, a real pleasure, meeting the folks, Smiley, his son, and all the other folks that made us so very welcome and went to a great deal of effort to take us to these locations by four-wheelers as well as other methods. We thank each of them again for that. We felt real blessed to be able to see this beautiful key written by an Hellenist, whereby you could see, and with you we could share. Hellenist writings, beloved, you are there.
What we have here on the side road in Kentucky is a possibility of a sunburst here on this bluff. It shows a turkey track here. It is a possible solar alignment through this notch here, which we have seen in West Virginia in several occasions. The notch being right here, by guess that this would probably be a winter solstice or a Christmas time possible alignment site. The limestone in this area is, as you can see, kind of flaked off, and it's pretty flaky here. We've looked for other writings. There are no other writings that we can find in this immediate area, but for your information, we possibly have a solar alignment here.
See, now this is the iota, which is completely detached from this here. And the stroke begins over here. And this is the pi, iota pi. The context and the surroundings here, knowing that this, we've seen other Greek writings, and we know what's on their mind and what they believe, it wouldn't take a genius to think that he was saying that Jesus, our massive stone, our massive rock. And it is equidistant here, right in the middle.
Now, to continue with Soter.
And this next to it here is a cross. And this could be Soter Jesus, a sigma and an iota, which means the Savior Jesus.
Shame that in areas that are open to the public, as I've said many times, that your initials may be really important to you, and you may be really somebody. But when you see a stone that has obvious ancient markings, which to some of us are even artifacts, and have a meaning of history long gone by, and I know some of you say, well, we want to leave our mark also. Well, be very careful that you don't come over what is a very obvious stem line. I'll call it a stem line, which is a directional feature of the particular message originally buried. If you must make your mark, and I think it's in very bad taste, make it somewhere away from and not overlapping an ancient marking. These people were leaving signposts of travel, of history, and of their culture. I hope that your culture is a little better than KC plus EM. That's really quite a historic thing. And I'll doubt very seriously at this time if KC even remembers EM. So think about it. And let's protect our American heritage of heritages that passed through here long before it was even called America. And it is a shame that I see a site like this that absolutely has ancient markings. What does it do? It causes a novice that perhaps has a little interest in searching for history gone by to discourage them to say, oh, it's a bunch of scribble. Well, we call it graffiti. And it's found in public bathrooms and sometimes near ancient monuments. So if you must leave your mark, leave it somewhere other than near an ancient monument or marker. I think it's fantastic that our Father leaves these things.
This is a Mason mark that Barry Fell showed was on the bricks at Calmacaco.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought.
This is it here. And if this is an astral alignment, it's pointing now at 352 degrees north. Probably at the time it was put there, it was true north. Mm-hmm. And here's the other astral alignment, which we think is towards the north. It reads at 340 degrees north. If that be so, it would be older, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. And it certainly looks older.
It certainly is.
And you've got some very ancient markings here that's still visible.
As far as understanding it, I would say the surface is scratched, but we've still got a ways to go, and it's going to get more exciting every foot of the way, right?
I sure do too.
Yeah.
When I first saw this, I couldn't disbelieve what my eyes were seeing. But the big question was, why is it here?
Yes.
Usually, let's begin to clear up.
Right. The high point was always picked to represent the Father, and that's why I don't have any trouble over here with the Christ, the King, the rock, because this is the high point, and sure enough, it is a huge rock. And how fitting that they would give the direction to a traveler that might follow along. So, all common sense.
Yep.
It sure is.
There is the letter we're discussing right here. And you will notice that we have an exact duplicate among all this graffiti, and it's obvious to an eye that is familiar with that is ancient and that isn't. This is ancient. And it is a beautiful hand. It isn't sloppy, and it's very professional. And it's a blessing. It really is to learn the different travelers that came through even this area and that would stop off on the high point of the country here. Now the mark you see here beside that on camera, ignore it. It's very recent, very recent. Just ignore that mark. This is the letter we're discussing.
See here, here is the Phoenician bed, and the ancient Greek also looks like this. And in fact, the ancient Greek is almost identical to this here.
A Beth.
Yeah. And it reads this way.
Your information, this stone is near the top of a hill, and it's exposed to any weather, sun, hail, anything that might come along. Yep. So this is one reason that I'm sure that the real ancient stuff is very, very faint. Yeah. However, it's still there, and because of the quality of the stone that it's placed in here. And certainly our Father causes messages to be left, I feel, that we may enjoy them and know His word is true. And He scattered the children. He did not only scatter Israel, He scattered the children through Phoenicia. He scattered them through the Arabic countries, and therefore the curiosity of mankind as they travel the globe. How wonderful that they left that message in their own language and their own alphabet. It's precious to realize the riches that we have in this nation in these years gone by. The Sadi, the ancient Hebrew Sadi.
We've lost
But I can't make the rest of it out.
So that's not part of it.
This is definitely a Sadi. It's a Sadi just like the one practically that was supposed to have been used on the Newark Holy Stone. Only they used the Babylonian extract with an earring.
It ends right here.
It goes all
And it goes
around.
all the way around to the arm.
Oh my word.
Come here and look at this right quick and see what you think there.
Well,
And then that right here now,
yeah, sure is.
that's not a Hebrew, is it?
I don't believe so. Well, what do you make of that? That's what we had down below. You think it's Greek? I'm not familiar with this. Is throwing me.
We got Greek down here, we know, but this I don't know. I thought maybe you could identify that.
That is.
I thought that was a form of
Oh, it is.
Hebrew.
It is. It's ancient. I got to
Yeah.
get my mind in
Yeah.
here. It's a quaff.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
It's a quaff.
It's all under your hand.
It sure
The
is.
reason I said that, I saw you give a lecture on that. the
Yeah,
other day.
you know what? I'm telling you what, we're talking old then.
I'd like for you to meet the crew, the brave crew that brought us up on this ridge on four-wheelers, and what an exciting ride it was, I must say, and we're indebted to them certainly for their assistance in getting us to this place. I want you to meet them. But first I'll say, Jim, it's good to see you again today, and we appreciate what
Yes,
you've
sir.
done.
Yes, sir. Well, it's been my pleasure.
And I'll let you introduce some of the crew.
Introduce my good brother-in-law, James Garrison. He's been so good to come with us, and we're
he
going to
sure
let him
has.
introduce himself. And
Been with us every foot of the way.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm James Garrison. This is my son, John Garrison, my nephew, Jeff Garrison. We're all local here from Clay County, born and raised in this part of the country. So we've been glad to be a help in trying to expose this to the world.
And also some very good friends that are, well, as a matter of fact, this gentleman has a great deal to do with the Four Wheel Association here in this county in Kentucky. And we call him Smiley Gibson. Smiley, would you introduce this young man that's with you here?
This is my son, Cecil Gibson.
Cecil Gibson. Well, we really appreciate you folks helping us out. And
We appreciate helping you out, sir.
well, I'll tell you, there's one thing about Clay County. We've sure found some people that are hospitable, and they love their country, they love their nation, and the heritage that is here, well, certainly they enjoy preserving that as best they can, and it's been a pleasure working with them. So, here we are, Clay County, Kentucky. And as I've always told you, the stones speak. You've just got to look, and you've got to listen, and there you are. Yes, Clay County, Kentucky, and you are there.